A homeless woman fixed a crying boy's bike, not knowing he was the son of a millionaire, watching nearby. "Please don't cry. I can fix it," Sarah said, kneeling beside the sobbing boy on the wet sidewalk. The child looked up, tears mixing with the small drop of blood from the scrape on his cheek. "You can? But it's all broken." "Teet, I'm good with broken things," Sarah replied, her dirty fingers already working on the bicycle chain that had slipped off its gear. She was acutely aware of her tattered beige dress getting even more soiled as she knelt on the damp pavement. But the boy's distress pulled at something deep inside her. She didn't notice the tall man in the expensive black coat watching from a distance, his intense gaze fixed on the interaction between the homeless woman and his son. Sarah Winters hadn't always lived on the streets of Boston. 6 months ago, she had been a respected mechanical engineer at Technovate Engineering, with an apartment in Cambridge and a promising career. Then came the corporate scandal, funds missing, accusations flying, and somehow, her name at the center of it all. False evidence planted by someone she had trusted led to her firing and blacklisting across the industry. Too ashamed to contact her family in Oregon, Sarah had watched her savings dwindle until she could no longer afford rent. The streets became her home, park benches her bed, and public restrooms her bathroom. Yet she maintained whatever dignity she could, washing in sinks and keeping her blonde hair as neat as possible. "What's your name?" she asked the boy, as her fingers deftly manipulated the bike chain. "Oliver," he sniffled. "Oliver Bennett. Dad got me this bike for my birthday last month." "It's a great bike," Sarah said, noting the quality of the small two-wheeler. "Just needs a little adjustment. See, the chain just jumped off the sprocket here." As she worked, the cold autumn rain began to fall harder, soaking through her already inadequate coat. Sarah barely noticed. She was used to discomfort. What mattered was the smile slowly replacing Oliver's tears as the chain slipped back into place. "There you go," she said, wiping her greasy hands on her dress, adding new stains to the collection. "Good as new. Try it." Oliver tentatively pushed the pedal, his face lighting up when it moved smoothly. "It works! You fixed it! Oliver!" The deep voice made Sarah look up. The man in the black coat was approaching, concern written across his handsome face. "Are you okay? What happened?" "Dad, this lady fixed my bike. She's magic with her hands," Oliver exclaimed, proudly demonstrating the repaired bicycle. The man's eyes shifted from his son to Sarah, who was now hastily standing, suddenly self-conscious of her appearance. His gaze wasn't unkind, but it was assessing, taking in her situation in one sweep. "Thank you for helping my son," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Marcus Bennett." Sarah hesitated before accepting the handshake, aware of the dirt under her fingernail. Sarah Winters. Marcus Bennett of Bennett Innovations?" The words left her mouth before she could stop them, recognition and dread flooding through her simultaneously. Marcus looked surprised. "Yes, that's right." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. Bennett Innovations had acquired Technovate 6 months ago, right around the time of the scandal. This man had unknowingly signed the documents that destroyed her life, acting on the false information provided by her former boss, Leonard Griffith. "I should go," she mumbled, backing away. "Wait," Marcus called, but Sarah had already turned, walking quickly away despite Oliver's protests behind her. She rounded the corner, heart pounding, and leaned against a brick wall. Of all the people in Boston, she had to help the son of Marcus Bennett. The universe had a cruel sense of humor. The rain fell harder now, soaking through her clothes. Sarah pulled her coat tighter, though it did little good. She needed to find shelter for the night, but her mind kept returning to the boy's grateful smile and the questioning look in his father's eyes. Little did she know that Marcus Bennett stood at the corner she had just fled, watching her disappear into the gray Boston afternoon, a thoughtful expression on his face as he held his son's hand. A week later, Sarah huddled in the doorway of a closed coffee shop, her thin frame shivering as another Boston downpour pounded the sidewalks. Winter was approaching, and with it came the terrifying prospect of freezing nights. She'd managed to find spots in shelters 3 nights that week, but they were always crowded, with more people than beds. The rumble of an expensive engine caught her attention. A sleek black car pulled alongside the curb, its windows tinted. When the back window rolled down, Sarah was shocked to see a familiar small face. "It's the Bike Angel!" Oliver Bennett's excited voice rang out as he waved frantically. The driver's door opened, and Marcus Bennett emerged with an umbrella, walking around to where Sarah stood frozen in place. "We've been looking for you," he said simply. Sarah shifted uncomfortably, aware of her unwashed hair and the same stained beige dress, now sporting a small tear at the hem. "Why? Oliver hasn't stopped talking about you. The woman who fixed his bike when no one else would stop to help a crying kid?" Marcus's eyes were kind but direct. "Can we talk? Maybe get you a hot meal?" Every instinct told Sarah to run. This man represented the company that had ruined her. Yet the promise of food and temporary shelter from the rain was too tempting to resist. 20 minutes later, Sarah sat across from Marcus in a quiet corner booth of a nearby diner, a steaming cup of coffee warming her hands, while Oliver happily devoured chocolate chip pancakes despite the afternoon hour. "I have a proposition for you," Marcus said, after Sarah had eaten half her sandwich. "I need a nanny for Oliver." Sarah nearly choked on her coffee. "Excuse me? My previous nanny left suddenly last month. I've interviewed several candidates, but none have clicked with Oliver." Marcus glanced at his son, who was now drawing on the paper placemat. "I need someone good with both kids and mechanical things. Oliver's always breaking his toys." "The position includes room and board at our home." "You don't know anything about me," Sarah said cautiously. "I know you stopped to help a child when you had every reason to keep walking. I know you have mechanical skills." Marcus leaned forward. "And I suspect you haven't always lived on the streets." Sarah felt exposed. "Why would you offer a job to someone living on the streets? I could be dangerous. I could be a drug addict." "Are you?" Marcus asked directly. "No," Sarah answered honestly. "I'm a good judge of character, Ms. Winters. It's how I built my company." Marcus handed her a business card. "The position is yours if you want it. Call this number tomorrow if you're interested." After they left, Sarah stared at the card for hours. Taking the job would mean living under the same roof as the CEO of the company connected to her disgrace. Yet it offered shelter, income, and perhaps a chance to start rebuilding her life. The next morning, she used her last quarters to call from a payphone. 3 hours later, she stood in the foyer of the Bennett townhouse in Beacon Hill, still hardly believing her decision. The housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, showed her to a guest suite that was larger than her former apartment. "Bathroom's through there," Mrs. Chen said. "Mr. Bennett had clothes delivered. Said to tell you dinner's at 6, but you can rest until then." Alone, Sarah touched the soft bed linens in disbelief. She showered for what felt like hours, watching months of grime circle the drain. The delivered clothes, simple but good quality jeans, shirts, sweaters, and even underwear in her size, made her wonder how Marcus had guessed her measurements. When she ventured downstairs that evening, Oliver spotted her immediately. "Sarah!" he exclaimed, running to her. "Dad said you're staying to be my new nanny. Will you fix my remote control car? It doesn't work right." Sarah smiled despite herself. "Let's take a look after dinner." Over the meal, Marcus explained her duties, getting Oliver to and from school, helping with homework, and general childcare when Marcus worked late. The salary he offered was generous, especially considering room and board were included. Later, after fixing Oliver's car, a simple wire connection issue, Sarah found herself in the kitchen where Marcus was answering email. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked. Marcus looked up from his laptop. Oliver's mother died 2 years ago. Since then, it's been hard finding someone who cares about him, not just the paycheck. He closed the computer. "When he described how you fixed his bike, I saw something in his eyes I haven't seen in a long time. Trust." Sarah nodded slowly. guilty that she was keeping her connection to Bennett Innovations secret. But she needed this chance, this temporary haven, while she figured out her next steps. "Get some rest," Marcus said. "Oliver's an early riser." As Sarah climbed the stairs to her new room, she told herself this arrangement was temporary, just until she got back on her feet. She couldn't allow herself to grow attached to Oliver or his father. But watching from the top of the stairs, seeing Oliver excitedly show his father the fixed toy car, Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced in months: hope. Over the next 6 weeks, Sarah brought order to the Bennett household in ways that surprised even her. Oliver's chaotic bedroom became organized, his school assignments were completed on time, and the refrigerator now hosted a color-coded schedule of activities. "You've worked miracles," Marcus commented one evening, finding Sarah in the kitchen preparing dinner, another task she'd gradually assumed from the part-time cook, who now came only twice a week. "Just basic organization," Sarah replied, stirring a pot of soup. "And Oliver's smart. He just needed some structure." What Sarah didn't say was how much she enjoyed creating that structure. Each day with the Bennetts pulled her further from the despair of her months on the street. Having purpose again, even if it wasn't the engineering career she'd trained for, felt like oxygen to someone who'd been drowning. Oliver bounded into the kitchen. "Dad, Sarah helped me build a model solar system that actually moves. Can we show you after dinner?" Marcus raised his eyebrows at Sarah, who smiled modestly. "Just some basic mechanics," she explained. "We used the broken motor from his old toy truck. You seem to know a lot about engineering for a—" Marcus caught himself. "For a nanny?" Sarah finished, tension creeping into her voice. "I was going to say for someone so young," Marcus corrected smoothly. But they both knew he hadn't been. That evening, after demonstrating the solar system model, complete with planets rotating at mathematically correct relative speeds, Oliver fell asleep on the couch. Marcus carried him upstairs while Sarah cleaned up the project materials. When Marcus returned, he found Sarah sketching modifications to the model. "You could have told me you were an engineer," he said, sitting across from her. Sarah's pencil paused. "Would you have hired me if I had? Honestly, probably not. I would have wondered why an engineer wanted a nanny position." Marcus studied her. "What happened, Sarah?" She closed her sketchbook. "Life. Sometimes things don't work out the way we plan." The conversation shifted, but Sarah sensed Marcus's curiosity. She needed to be more careful about revealing her expertise. As November turned to December, Boston transformed with holiday decoration. Sarah helped Oliver select and decorate a Christmas tree. His first real one since his mother died, he confided. "Mom loved Christmas," Oliver told her as they hung ornaments. "Dad couldn't handle it after she was gone." "And now?" Sarah asked gently. Oliver smiled. "Now you're here." The simple statement hit Sarah with unexpected force. She was becoming part of their lives in ways she'd never intended. Marcus, too, was changing. He began coming home earlier, sometimes bringing work rather than staying late at the office. He joined them for movie nights and helped with Oliver's increasingly complex science projects, all inspired by Sarah's guidance. One evening, Sarah found Marcus in his home office, surrounded by paperwork. "Sorry to interrupt," she said. "Just wanted to ask about Oliver's school holiday party." "Come in," Marcus waved her forward. "I could use a break." Sarah noticed the financial reports on his desk. "Quarterly review?" Marcus looked up, surprised. "Yes. How did you know?" "The formatting," she said quickly. "I've seen business documents before." "Where did you work before?" He gestured vaguely. "Before I became homeless?" Sarah finished bluntly. "Various places. Nothing worth mentioning." A week before Christmas, Sarah used her first paycheck to buy materials for a special gift for Oliver. Late at night, after the household was asleep, she worked on creating a miniature functioning Ferris wheel from his building sets, something he'd been trying unsuccessfully to construct for months. On Christmas morning, Oliver's eyes widened at the perfectly balanced mechanism. "This is amazing! How did you do it?" "Engineering is just puzzle solving," Sarah said. showing him how the gears worked together. Marcus watched them, a strange expression on his face. Later, when Oliver was playing with his other gifts, Marcus approached Sarah with a small wrapped box. "I wasn't sure if you'd accept this," he said hesitantly, "but I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for us." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet. Sarah stared at it, overwhelmed. "Marcus, I can't—" "Please," he interrupted. "You've brought life back into this house. Before you came, Oliver and I were just going through the motions." As he fastened the bracelet around her wrist, his fingers lingered on her skin. Their eyes met, and Sarah felt a connection she'd been trying to deny for weeks. That night, after Oliver was asleep, they sat by the fire drinking hot chocolate. And for the first time, Marcus spoke at length about Julia, his late wife. She was brilliant, a pediatric surgeon. We met in college and built our lives together. When she got sick, it happened so fast. His voice broke. Oliver was only 6 when she died. "He's an amazing kid," Sarah said softly. "She'd be proud of him." "And you? Any family?" Marcus asked. Sarah hesitated. Not anymore. It wasn't entirely a lie. Her parents had disowned her years ago over her career choice, wanting her to follow the family tradition of law. Now, with her reputation destroyed, she couldn't face them. As January arrived, Sarah realized she'd become dangerously comfortable in the Bennett home. Worse, she was falling in love with both Marcus and Oliver. A complicated situation made impossible by the secret she kept. "Is this seat taken?" Marcus asked, finding Sarah sketching in the sunroom on a bright February morning. Sarah quickly closed her notebook, filled with designs for improvements to Bennett Innovations' flagship product, ideas she couldn't help developing after seeing Marcus's work document. "Just doodling," she said, making room for him on the window seat. Outside, Oliver was building a snowman in the garden. "Just doodling," Marcus repeated with a smile. "The same way you just fixed the dishwasher yesterday? Or just rewired the faulty lamp in my office?" Sarah shrugged. "I like fixing things." "Sarah," Marcus said softly, "I've seen your sketches. Those aren't doodles. They're professional-grade engineering designs." Her heart raced. "I told you I had some experience." "Some experience doesn't explain your level of expertise." Marcus's voice remained gentle. "I respect your privacy, but I need to know who I've invited into my home, especially with Oliver involved." The moment Sarah had dreaded for months had arrived. She could invent a plausible story or tell a partial truth. Instead, looking into Marcus's honest eyes, she found herself wanting to confess everything. Before she could respond, Oliver burst through the door, face red with cold. "Dad! Sarah! Come see my snowman! I made him look like Mr. Patterson from science class." The moment passed, but Sarah knew the conversation wasn't over. That evening, after Oliver was asleep, Marcus knocked on her bedroom door. When she opened it, he held an envelope. "The annual Bennett Innovations Charity Gala is next Saturday," he said. "I'd like you to attend. As my guest, not as Oliver's nanny." Sarah took the envelope. "Marcus, I don't think—" "Mrs. Chen will stay with Oliver." His expression softened. "Please say yes." Against her better judgment, Sarah agreed. The week before the gala passed in a blur. Marcus arranged for a stylist to bring dresses to the house, insisting when Sarah protested the expense. She finally selected a simple midnight blue gown that transformed her appearance from nanny to elegant companion. On the night of the gala, when Sarah descended the stairs, Marcus's expression told her everything she needed to know about how she looked. "You're beautiful," he said simply. Oliver, allowed to stay up to see them off, circled Sarah admiringly. "You look like a princess from my books." At the event, held in the grand ballroom of Boston's finest hotel, Sarah felt like an imposter in more ways than one. These were Marcus's colleagues and competitors, people who might recognize her from her engineering days. "Relax," Marcus whispered, his hand warm against her back. "You belong here." Sarah doubted that, but tried to enjoy the evening. Marcus introduced her simply as Sarah Winters, a close friend. and she navigated the small talk by asking questions rather than answering them. When the orchestra began playing, Marcus led her to the dance floor. In his arms, Sarah temporarily forgot her fears, lost in the moment and the growing feelings between them. "You're remarkable, Sarah Winters," Marcus whispered as they swayed to the music. For that moment, Sarah allowed herself to believe in possibilities. Then she saw him, Leonard Griffith, her former boss, the man who had framed her to cover his own embezzlement. He was talking to a group of executives across the room, a champagne flute in his hand. "Sarah? What's wrong? You've gone pale." Marcus's concerned voice seemed distant. Leonard turned, his eyes scanning the crowd and landing on her. His smile faltered as recognition dawned. "I need air," Sarah managed to say, pulling away from Marcus. But before she could escape, Leonard approached them, smooth as ever. "Marcus, good to see you." He clapped Marcus on the shoulder before turning his shark-like gaze to Sarah. "And who is this lovely lady?" "Leonard Griffith. Meet Sarah Winters," Marcus said. "Sarah, Leonard joined us after the Technovate acquisition. He heads our financial division now." Sarah forced herself to shake Leonard's hand, feeling sick. "Sarah Winters," Leonard repeated, eyes narrowing. "You look remarkably familiar." "I don't believe we've met," Sarah lied. "Marcus, I need a moment about the Peterson account," Leonard said, maintaining his pleasant facade. Before turning away, he added with false concern, "And perhaps about your guest." As Leonard walked away, Sarah knew her time at the Bennett house was finished. Leonard would reveal everything, twisted to serve his narrative. She had minutes, perhaps hours, before Marcus discovered her deception. "Sarah, what just happened?" Marcus asked. "You know, Leonard? I need to use the restroom," she said, fleeing toward the ladies' lounge. Inside a bathroom stall, Sarah leaned against the wall, heart pounding. She could hear Leonard's voice in her mind. "Either you take the fall for the missing money, or I'll make sure you never work in engineering again." She'd refused his blackmail, believing the truth would protect her. She'd been wrong. Now, history was repeating itself. Leonard would destroy her relationship with Marcus before it had truly begun. Sarah composed herself and returned to the ballroom, finding Marcus in conversation with Leonard. When Marcus's eyes met hers, she saw confusion and the beginning of doubt. That night, after returning to the Bennett home in uncomfortable silence, Sarah waited until the house was quiet. Then she packed her few belongings and wrote a brief note. "Thank you for your kindness. I'm sorry I couldn't be honest." As she slipped out before dawn, Sarah allowed herself one last look at the house that had briefly felt like home. "She's gone?" Oliver's voice cracked as he clutched Sarah's note, his small face crumpling. "But why? She didn't even say goodbye." Marcus took the paper from his son's trembling hands, reading the brief message again. The confusion and hurt on Oliver's face mirrored his own feelings. "I don't know, buddy," he said, pulling Oliver into a hug. "Sometimes adults make complicated decisions. But she was happy here. We were happy." Oliver pushed away, anger replacing sadness. "It's because you took her to that stupid party, isn't it?" The accusation hit uncomfortably close to Marcus's suspicions. Sarah had changed after her interaction with Leonard Griffith. "Oliver, get ready for school. Mrs. Chen will take you today." Marcus kept his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. After Oliver reluctantly left for school, Marcus called his office. "Cancel my meetings today," he instructed his assistant, "and send Leonard Griffith to my home office as soon as possible." 2 hours later, Leonard sat across from Marcus, sympathy expertly arranged on his face. "I didn't want to say anything at the gala," Leonard said, sliding a folder across the desk. "But when I recognized her, I felt you should know who you've welcomed into your home." Marcus opened the folder, finding news articles about corporate espionage at Technovate Engineering. Sarah's name appeared prominently. "This claims she stole company funds and sold trade secret," Marcus said, frowning. "She was quite convincing," Leonard replied smoothly. a brilliant engineer who used her position to access financial accounts. When we acquired Technovate, the audit revealed her schemes. She disappeared before charges could be filed. Marcus studied the documents. Something felt wrong. Why didn't the police pursue her? The company preferred to handle it quietly. Bad publicity. Leonard shrugged. I'm just concerned for you and Oliver. After Leonard left, Marcus stared at the documents, battling conflicting emotions. The Sarah described in these papers bore no resemblance to the woman who had brought his household back to life over the past months. Meanwhile, Sarah had spent a miserable day walking Boston's cold streets, eventually finding herself at a women's shelter in Dorchester. She'd been here once before, during her first homeless weeks. Sarah? A gray-haired woman approached her in the dining area. I thought that was you. Rosa Martinez, the shelter's director and a retired corporate lawyer, had helped Sarah navigate the system months ago. Hello, Rosa, Sarah said tiredly. Later, in Rosa's small office, Sarah's composure finally cracked. Between sobs, she told Rosa everything: her false accusation at Technovate, the months on the street, the Bennett family, and her hasty departure after seeing Leonard. The numbers in the financial records, Rosa said thoughtfully after Sarah finished. Can you remember specifics? Sarah nodded. I was tracking discrepancies when Leonard discovered me. The pattern showed regular fund transfers to offshore accounts, all authorized with codes matching Leonard's digital signature. Rosa's eyes narrowed. This doesn't add up. The numbers you're describing suggest Griffith was the one embezzling. Turchik, without evidence. It's just my word against his, Sarah replied hopelessly. And he's destroyed my credibility. Rosa's eyes gleamed. Then let's find evidence. Back at the Bennett home, Oliver had returned from school, unconvinced by his father's explanation of Sarah's departure. She wouldn't just leave us, he insisted, refusing dinner. After an hour of watching his son push food around his plate, Marcus relented. Maybe there's something in her room that might explain things better. In Sarah's meticulously neat room, everything had been cleaned and organized before her departure. Except for one thing Oliver discovered. Dad! Look! He pulled a small notebook from between the mattress and box spring. It was hidden. Marcus took the notebook, finding pages of calculations and notes about financial discrepancies at Technovate Engineering. Complex spreadsheet formulas were annotated in Sarah's neat handwriting, tracking what appeared to be systematic fund diversion. Marcus, an engineer himself before becoming CEO, recognized the significance of Sarah's notes. The patterns she'd identified pointed to embezzlement, but the transactions bore Leonard's digital signature, not Sarah's. Oliver, this is important, Marcus said. This notebook shows Sarah was trying to catch someone stealing from her company. So she didn't do anything wrong? Oliver asked, hope returning to his face. I don't think so, Marcus replied, his mind racing. In fact, I think she might have been framed. With growing suspicion, Marcus initiated a quiet investigation into his executive. He called his chief of security, requesting a deeper background check on both Leonard Griffith and Sarah Winters. 3 days later, the security chief presented his findings in Marcus's office. Winters was top of her class at MIT. Impeccable record until the Technovate incident. He handed Marcus a file. But here's where it gets interesting. Griffith's financial history shows irregular deposits matching the pattern in Winters' notebook, starting before the Technovate acquisition and continuing after he joined Bennett Innovations. He's been stealing from my company too, Marcus realized, anger building. There's more, the security chief continued. Winters filed a whistleblower report 3 days before she was accused. That report mysteriously disappeared from Technovate's systems. Marcus stared at the evidence, pieces falling into place. Can we prove it? With forensic accounting and the notes from her notebook? Absolutely. That evening, Marcus sat with Oliver, explaining what they'd discovered. So, Sarah was trying to catch a bad guy, and he blamed her instead, Oliver summarized. Exactly, and now he works for me, still stealing money. Marcus ruffled his son's hair. But we're going to make it right. Are we going to find Sarah? Oliver asked eagerly. First, we need to handle Leonard. Then, yes, we're going to find her, Marcus promised. But she might not want to come back after everything that's happened. She will, Oliver said with certainty. She belongs with us. Over the next weeks, Marcus worked with his legal team, building an ironclad case against Leonard Griffith. The evidence from Sarah's notebook provided the key to unraveling Leonard's schemes across both companies. When confronted with the evidence, Leonard attempted to flee the country, but was arrested at Logan Airport. The news made headlines. Bennett Innovations executive arrested for multi-million-dollar embezzlement. But despite the vindication, Sarah remained missing. The women's shelter wouldn't confirm whether she had stayed there, protecting their residents' privacy. We have to find her, Dad, Oliver said, clutching Sarah's notebook. We have to tell her she was right all along. 3 months after her disappearance, Sarah tightened a bolt on the community center's ancient heating system. February had brought record cold to Boston, and the shelter's limited budget meant repairs fell to her rather than professional contractors. You're a godsend, Rosa said, watching Sarah work. When you showed up needing shelter, I had no idea you'd end up being our maintenance supervisor. Sarah smiled wryly. From homeless to employed in 3 months. Not bad. She didn't add that thoughts of the Bennetts still kept her awake at night. The small apartment she'd secured above the center felt empty, despite being all her own. Have you seen the news? Rosa asked casually, handing Sarah a newspaper. Sarah froze, seeing the headline, Bennett Innovations CFO pleads guilty to embezzlement. Leonard Griffith's photo stared back at her. It says here, Rosa continued, that evidence came from an unnamed whistleblower. The funds he stole from Technovate Engineering and Bennett Innovations will be recovered. Sarah's hands trembled. They found my notebook. You've been vindicated, Sarah. Rosa squeezed her shoulder. Your name isn't mentioned, but the article clearly states the original whistleblower was falsely accused. Before Sarah could respond, the center's front door opened, letting in a blast of cold air and a familiar voice that made her heart stop. You're still magic with your hands. She turned slowly, finding Oliver Bennett grinning at her, with Marcus standing behind him, snow dusting their shoulders. How did you find me? She managed to ask, heart pounding. Dad's really good at finding things, Oliver said proudly, running to hug her. And people. Rosa discreetly slipped away as Marcus stepped forward, his expression a mixture of regret and hope. Leonard Griffith has been arrested for embezzlement from multiple companies, including mine and your former employer, he said. Your notes helped build the case. Sarah swallowed hard. I should have told you everything. Yes, you should have, Marcus agreed. But I understand why you didn't. Oliver tugged her hand. Does this mean you'll come home now? I kept your room exactly the same. Oliver, Marcus warned gently. It's okay, Sarah said, kneeling to the boy's level. I've missed you terribly. Then why did you leave? Oliver's plaintive question held no accusation, only confusion. I was scared, Sarah admitted. I thought your dad would believe Leonard's lies about me. I would have, Marcus acknowledged. At first, but then I would have listened to your side. That's what I regret most, not giving you the chance to explain. Sarah stood, facing Marcus. How did you know I was working here? Rosa called my office last week, Marcus replied. Said she had information about Sarah Winters that might interest me. Sarah glanced toward Rosa's office, understanding now why her mentor had been dropping hints about making peace with the past. There's something else, Marcus continued, pulling out a folder. We found your patent applications from 5 years ago. The ones Leonard blocked and claimed as his own? Bennett Innovations now owns them. And as the rightful inventor, you're entitled to the royalties, which are substantial. Sarah stared at the folder in disbelief. I don't care about the money. I just wanted my name cleared. Well, now you have both, Marcus smiled. And maybe something else, if you're willing. To Sarah's astonishment, Marcus knelt in the worn linoleum floor of the community center, producing a small velvet box from his coat pocket. Dad and I talked about this a lot, Oliver interjected. before Marcus could speak. "We both agree our home isn't complete without you." "Oliver," Marcus laughed. "I was going to be more eloquent." "Sorry," Oliver whispered, not looking sorry at all. Marcus turned back to Sarah, opening the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. "Sarah Winters, brilliant engineer, and the woman who taught us to be a family again. Will you marry me?" Sarah looked between Marcus and Oliver, seeing matching expressions of hope and love. 3 months ago, she'd fled, believing she had no place in their world. Now, they were offering her everything. "What about my job?" she asked. "My engineering career?" "Bennett Innovations has an opening for a Chief Innovation Officer," Marcus replied. "Someone who can oversee our new charitable foundation, providing engineering opportunities to underprivileged youth." "That sounds perfect for you," Rosa commented, reappearing with hot chocolate for everyone. Sarah looked at the 3 expectant faces, realizing she had found not just a family, but a future where her skills could help others. The path from that rainy day fixing Oliver's bike to this moment seemed impossible. Yet, here they were. "Yes," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "To both of you." Oliver whooped with delight, throwing his arms around her. Marcus stood, sliding the ring onto her finger before pulling her into an embrace. "I knew you'd say yes," Oliver declared confidently. "Dad wasn't so sure." "Smart kid," Sarah laughed, ruffling his hair. That evening, the 3 of them walked through the snowy Boston streets, Oliver running ahead while Marcus and Sarah followed hand in hand. "You know, when I saw you fixing Oliver's bike that day, something told me you were special," Marcus admitted. "I never expected you'd change our lives so completely." "I never expected a broken bicycle chain would lead me here," Sarah replied, watching Oliver stop to examine an icicle. "Life takes strange turns. The best ones usually do," Marcus said, pulling her close for a kiss as snowflakes danced around them. Behind them, Oliver made gagging noises before running ahead with his arms outstretched, catching snowflakes on his tongue. A happy child with his family finally whole again. 5 years later, Sarah Bennett stepped back to survey the newly expanded Winters Center for STEM education. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows of the modern building that had once been an abandoned warehouse in Dorchester. Now it housed state-of-the-art labs, classrooms, and workspaces where underprivileged youth could discover the wonders of science and engineering. "Mom, come see what I did," 13-year-old Oliver called from the robotics lab, where he was mentoring younger students. His voice had begun to change, cracking occasionally in that awkward teenage way that both amused and reminded Sarah how quickly time was passing. In the 5 years since she had rejoined the Bennett family, this time as wife and mother, Sarah had witnessed Oliver grow from a sweet 8-year-old into a thoughtful teenager with his father's confidence and his own natural aptitude for engineering. "Coming!" Sarah called back, adjusting 3-year-old Julia in her arms. The little girl, named after Marcus's first wife in a gesture that had brought tears to Oliver's eyes, had Sarah's blonde hair and Marcus's contemplative gaze. As she entered the robotics lab, Sarah found Oliver demonstrating gear ratios to an attentive group of middle schoolers. She watched with pride as he patiently explained the concepts, remembering the boy who had once struggled with a broken bicycle chain. "Mrs. Bennett?" a staff member approached. "There's a young girl at reception with a bicycle problem. She's asking if anyone can help." Sarah smiled. "I'll handle this one myself." At the front desk, she found a girl of about 10 standing beside a small bicycle with a twisted chain. The child looked on the verge of tears. "Having trouble?" Sarah asked, setting Julia down on a nearby chair with a picture book. "My chain broke," the girl said, pointing to the tangled metal. "My mom said maybe someone here could fix it. We live in apartment 4C across the street." Sarah knelt beside the bicycle, feeling a powerful sense of déjà vu. "What's your name?" "Amara Johnson," the girl replied, watching curiously as Sarah's experienced hands began working on the chain. "Nice to meet you, Amara. I'm Sarah Bennett." She manipulated the chain back into place. "This looks worse than it is." See how the chain just jumped off these gears here? As she worked, Sarah asked, "Do you like science, Amara?" "Yeah, but we don't have good science classes at my school," Amara said, her eyes tracking Sarah's movements with keen interest. "Well, you're looking at the director of this center," Sarah told her. "We have free programs every afternoon and weekend. Would you like to see what we do here?" Amara's eyes widened. "For real?" Sarah nodded, testing the pedals to ensure the chain was properly seated. "For real? In fact, we have an apprenticeship program for kids your age who show mechanical aptitude." "What's apti? That word you said?" Amara asked. "Aptitude. It means natural skill." Sarah smiled. "Like how you were watching exactly what I was doing instead of just waiting for me to finish." Before Amara could respond, the center's doors opened and Marcus walked in carrying a stack of pizza boxes. "Food for the hungry engineers," he announced, spotting Sarah and making his way over. After 5 years of marriage, his smile still made her heart beat faster. "Daddy!" Julia squealed, abandoning her book to run toward Marcus. He managed to set the pizzas down just in time to scoop her up. "Hello, Princess." "Marcus, this is Amara," Sarah introduced them. "She lives across the street and might be joining our apprenticeship program." Marcus extended his hand to the suddenly shy girl. "Any friend of Sarah's is welcome here, especially ones interested in engineering." "Is that your bike?" Amara asked, pointing to the glass case in the reception area. Inside the case sat a small child's bicycle, the very one Sarah had fixed for Oliver that rainy day 5 years ago. A plaque beneath it read, "Where the journey began." "That belonged to my son," Marcus explained. "A kind woman fixed it when it was broken, and that one act of kindness changed all our lives." Later that evening, the Bennett family walked together through the same park where Sarah and Oliver had first met. Oliver now towered over his stepmother, his lanky teenage frame almost as tall as his father's. "Dad said you're giving Amara Johnson a scholarship," Oliver commented as they strolled. Sarah nodded. "She reminds me of myself at that age, curious, determined." "Before you became homeless, or after?" Oliver asked, with the directness of adolescence. "Oliver," Marcus admonished, but Sarah squeezed his hand. "It's a fair question," she said. "Before, during, and after, Oliver, were shaped by all our experiences, good and bad." Julia tugged at Sarah's hand. "Mama, teach me to ride without wheels." They stopped at the playground where Julia's small pink bicycle waited. Sarah had been gradually preparing her daughter to ride without training wheels. "Okay, sweetheart. Remember what I taught you about balance." As Sarah held the bicycle steady, with Marcus capturing the moment on his phone and Oliver offering encouraging tips, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought her here. 5 years ago, she had been homeless and hopeless, her career and reputation in ruins. Now she stood in the sunshine with her family, her name cleared, her innovations changing lives through the foundation, and her heart full. "Let go, Mama," Julia called, pedaling wobblily forward. "I'm doing it!" Sarah released the bicycle, watching her daughter ride independently for the first time. The look of pure joy on Julia's face mirrored what Sarah felt inside, the exhilaration of moving forward, balanced and free. "You're doing it!" Sarah called, running alongside. Just like that. Marcus slipped his arm around her waist as they watched Julia make a wobbly circle around the playground. "Not bad for a woman who fixed a bike on a rainy day," he whispered. Sarah smiled, leaning into his embrace. "Sometimes the most broken things lead us to exactly where we need to be." As the autumn sun began to set, casting golden light across the park where their story had begun, the Bennett family walked home together. Oliver pushing Julia's bike, Marcus carrying their tired daughter, and Sarah walking beside them, her hand firmly clasped in her husband's. 5 years had transformed everything, yet the most important things remained: kindness, courage, and the family they had built together, one broken piece at a time.